Top 10 teams in the NFC. My boy Colin Cowherd is going to rank them. We are going to react to them. Jason McIntyre is going to sit there and look very excited on the left. I haven't really thought about this. The NFC is interesting because it's very top heavy. The NFC has what I would say is probably the best team in the NFL, and the Eagles. After that, it's got a ton of the same team. 2 through 6, 7-ish is probably about the same. That's where you start getting into your Dallas, Minnesota, New Orleans, Detroit, those kind of teams. San Francisco. San Francisco is probably 2, but you still have Brock Purdy. You know, like you either have Brock Purdy or you have Trey Lance. How confident are you in those two for like a season prediction? I don't know. I'd feel much more confident if I was San Francisco if I had Jimmy Garoppolo than a full season of Brock Purdy. So the NFC, if you told me that Detroit will go to the NFC Championship game, I would not be surprised at all. If you told me the Saints will, I would not be surprised at all. If you told me the Niners will, I would not be surprised at all. There's a lot there. Now, if you told me the Eagles will miss it, I would be shocked. So I'm interested to see who Colin ranks where. He will have to make some jumps. If he's going top 10, that 9 and 10 area, those teams probably will be pretty bad. Those teams probably will be, you know, if he's bullish on the Packers or somebody like that.
Okay, so it's been well documented, the gap between the AFC, which is loaded, and the NFC. So now all the coaching hires are done.
Now, that's another interesting thing. There is a gap as far as depth. When you're looking at the AFC and you have Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, like you have those kind of teams, Miami, even the Jets now with Aaron Rodgers, you can go like 6 or 7 deep, but only one of them can make the Super Bowl. So the gap depth-wise is insane. But the gap between whoever the best team in the AFC is and the Eagles, there's not much of a gap at all. The Eagles might actually, more than likely, would be favored. So it's kind of funny how that works because even though that there's absolutely no doubt the AFC is much better, much deeper, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the Super Bowl, you know, it's kind of the same.
All the free agency is done. All the draft, it's over. We know what we have. Now we have to go through OTAs and camps. We'll see how good Jordan Love is. A lot of speculation.
He's not good.
Somebody could get hurt.
Bad.
But this is my post-free agency, post-coaching hire, post-draft, NFC top 10.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
Bleak.
Okay.
AFC top 10, much more dynamic.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tomorrow.
100%. 100%.
Here would be my top 10 teams in the NFC.
All right, real quick, I'll try and do a couple here. I would have Philadelphia 1. I would have San Francisco 2. I would have Dallas 3. I'd probably have. I kind of want to put Detroit 3. I'll put Detroit 3. I'll have Dallas 4. I'll have the Saints 5. So that would be my top 5.
Number 1, and I think there's a gap now. Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
Jalen Hurts is
there is a
locked
gap.
and loaded. I do worry about losing both coordinators and specifically Shane Steichen. But
Josh Gannon, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, is incredibly overhyped. No offense to Josh Gannon, but he just is. Okay. Their defensive scheme, what they did, how they adapted, their game plans were nowhere near as good defensively as they were offensively. Shane Steichen is a legitimate coordinator. That is a legitimate loss, especially when you run such a system. You know, like when you have a quarterback like a Tom Brady or you run an offense like that, it's okay if you lose Josh McDaniels. It's okay if you lose whoever. But when you run a system that is so specific as the Eagles, losing the coordinator that runs it, especially when you have a young quarterback who just developed, that is hard. So losing Steichen, we'll see. You know, we'll see how much it affects it, but Colin's right. That is going to be a big change. That aside, the Eagles roster is nuts. The Eagles, the defense that they added in the draft alone is nuts. Okay, so the Eagles should run away with the NFC, barring some like crazy injury or something like that.
Because the culture's so strong, they get a Jalen Carter. They are loaded on both lines, offense and defense. Jalen Carter, to me, was the best player in the draft. They lost some linebackers. I just want to see them without Shane Steichen.
Yeah.
The good news, they have an offensive coach, so the drop-off shouldn't be significant. Eagles at 1. Niners at 2, but they don't have a Jalen Hurts at quarterback.
This is tough. I mean, I'm kind of surprised the Niners didn't make a move at quarterback, honestly, because, say what you want about Brock Purdy, but he played 7 games, and now you have a full season or a full off season of tape on him. You have game plans for him. I would say he's I don't want to say he's a bad quarterback, but I'm not sure if he's the kind of guy who you can say this is a Super Bowl threatening team with him as your quarterback. Unless he takes a step, unless he moves up again. But a lot of the times when I watched him last year and he had to win the game, he had to make plays, it didn't look good. All right. It didn't look like the kind of guy who you can say, you know what, this is my 5-year, 6-year starter. This is the franchise guy. Let's rock and roll. Now, there is a chance that it's Trey Lance season. There is a chance that Trey Lance will be the guy. And that could be a wrinkle. I mean, for sure. If Trey Lance can turn it around, develop, give a little bit more to that offense, I don't know. The book's still out on Trey Lance. A lot of people think he's terrible. We don't know enough. But if capable, I would almost rather take a chance on Trey Lance than put my whole season on Brock Purdy.
So my guess is they'll be playing in Philadelphia in the postseason. Javon Hargrave, another good defensive lineman. It is a full season with Christian McCaffrey. For the record, they were 12-1 when Christian McCaffrey was in the starting lineup. It's a team that's getting a little old in the tooth. Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. They may.
Well, and also, and Colin might talk about this, but they lost their coordinator as well. They're a defensive team who lost their defensive coordinator. So just like Steichen with Philadelphia, the DeMeco Ryans loss might be big.
They have to make some tweaks after this season, but right now they're 2. Got to tell you, I love the Seahawks draft.
Wow, that's high. I like the Seahawks. They would probably be my 6th. They would be. They're right there. Now, like I said, that this little jumble here, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all kind of the same. Seattle, New Orleans. All right, I can see both of that. Seattle's got some better parts like the coach, the culture, all that thing, all of that. Weapons wise, strong with DK and Lockett. Geno plays like he did last year. Quarterback is probably about even. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say this is a bit of a reach, but with an NFC that's so kind of compact with the teams, I'm okay with this.
Again this year.
Like, I had Detroit at 3. Am I sure Jared Goff is going to have a great season this year or repeat the season? I'm about as sure of that as I am with Geno. So,
Best corner, best receiver, maybe the second best running back. They took more off the plate of Geno Smith. So this is a franchise that does not have a lot of holes. Now, they feel like they're a little too young to beat an older San Francisco or an older Philadelphia where you have established Pro Bowl level players. But in terms of young talent, I think Seattle has got the best young talent arguably in the entire conference. Tip of the cap to John Snyder, the GM, and Pete Carroll, the head coach.
Here's a controversial statement. For the value and the odds, like I think I have Caesar still pulled up. Yeah, let me check it out. So for the Super Bowl, you could take the Niners, or let's just take the NFC. You could take the Niners at 3-1. So you could, for those new to gambling, you could put 100 down to win 320, right? Or you could take Seattle, put 100 down and win 1,800. I would have more faith, or I would rather take a chance on Seattle to win the NFC at longer odds than San Francisco at shorter odds. That's not saying I think I'm not saying that Seattle's better, but I'm saying that for the value, that's what I would rather do. If I was taking a Super Bowl future, I would rather take Seattle than San Francisco, because this is another controversial opinion. I was not expecting to be so controversial today, but I would rather have Geno Smith than Brock Purdy. Ooh, you're not going to hear a lot of people say that.
Now there's a drop-off. Cowboys at 4, but Kellen Moore's gone, and Mike McCarthy calling the plays. I don't love it.
No way, right? Like, when you say that, and you say Big Mike, our boy, Big Mike, is Big Mike the most skewered person on this channel? The most consistently skewered? Well, maybe Pete Carmichael. Yeah, Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen. But Big Mike called. Now, I don't think Kellen Moore is anything special. No offense to Kellen Moore, respectfully. But Big Mike is a clown. We know that. One of the worst in-game game managing, one of the worst head coaches on the sideline in the NFL. Maybe the worst. Okay. Now that Nathaniel Hackett is not a head coach anymore. And Dak, when you look at Dak and you look at his last season and you look at the interceptions, it's hard for me to believe in Dallas when Dak is playing like that. And you would have to assume he's just going to kind of get worse as he gets older. Dak went from being like the foundation of the Cowboys to their biggest problem. Kirk Cousins or Dak. I would much rather have a Kirk Cousins, and I'm not a Kirk Cousins fan. Now, I know I did my ranking and I had Dallas high too. The NFC is not that great. Dallas has a good defense, but I think Dallas does have a ceiling and that ceiling is Dak Prescott.
Love that. I also don't love the fact that, let's be honest here, Brandon Cooks, that's your number 2 receiver. A little older Stephon Gilmore at corner. I didn't love their draft, although Mozzie Smith should start in the interior of defense. I just think Kellen Moore is going to cost you.
Dallas, another thing you got to remember with teams like Dallas, teams that relied heavily on turnovers, like Dallas did last year, turnovers are random, and you can't expect a team to force turnovers consistently year in, year out. They just kind of happen. So the fact that Dallas was so reliant on their defense getting those turnovers, that's one of those things that I would look at and say, that's probably going to regress. That's probably going to regress a little bit to the mean. So if you take away those turnovers, is Dallas the same kind of team as they were last year? And I would say no.
A game or two in that division. Very, very clever offensive mind. You're asking Dak to do more now. Tony Pollard off a major injury, and Zeke is gone. That means more throwing for Dak without Kellen Moore, the OC. I don't love it. Number 5, I'm still a buyer on the Rams, a year removed from the Super Bowl. Folks, when Matt Stafford last played for an entire...
I don't know about this. I think the Rams are just in a free fall. I'm not going to lie, I don't think I would have the Rams in my top 10. I just think the Rams are going to consistently just fall apart. And then eventually they'll unravel. Eventually we'll see all the people leave. The Rams that like the Super Bowl Rams and all that stuff, it's just going to fall apart piece by piece until they're in a full rebuild. And I mean, look, if everyone stays healthy, if Stafford has a big time year, maybe, but I think Stafford's one injury away, I think, from retiring. I think that's like the whole team. I think the whole team is on the way out. The whole team is like, I could retire. And anytime an entire team has a ring and they have the mindset of, I could probably just retire, that's not the team you want to back.
Entire season, he threw for over 5,000 yards. Cooper Kupp was the number 1 volume receiver, and Aaron Donald didn't play last year after Thanksgiving, right? Like, they get 3 stars back. They also had a ton of picks. They had depth. The offensive line got the best guard in the draft and can't have 13 different starting lineups. They just fell apart last year. They've added depth. They had a nice draft. I think they'll return. Listen, in the AFC, they're not a playoff team. In the NFC, I think they will be. Number 6, I'm going to go with the Lions. Listen.
I think the Lions are way better than the Rams. I mean, like, I could listen to the Lions being 5 and being behind Seattle and Dallas, but I just think I understand what Colin's saying, that it's a buy low time on the Rams because they're getting so many stars back. But that's also assuming that those stars are going to, like Cooper Kupp's going to repeat his, MVP type year. It's going to assume that Matthew Stafford's healthy for the entire year. It's going to assume that Aaron Donald's healthy for the entire year. It's going to assume they all want to play. Like that's a lot. It's a lot. Detroit, I think, is much more likely to repeat last year or get better. They keep just adding talent, adding depth. A lot of people are poo-pooing their draft, but I like what Detroit has going on. It all kind of hinges on Goff. Goff has to kind of be the same guy, but we'll see.
It's hard to really love the Lions. They screw stuff up. Many people thought they screwed the draft up, but they did. Their first 4 draft picks are guys that are going to start, so I like that. Jamison Williams, the great receiver, is suspended early.
Yeah.
That little policy, the gambling policy issue.
Yeah,
they have a very good offensive line, a quarterback that doesn't move a lot, but can throw the ball to the right spots with Jared Goff. I think they're young. I think they're ascending. I think we're getting a tad ahead of ourselves on the Lions. But could they make the playoffs and win a playoff game if they played at home because they'll win their division? I think they will. They could. Detroit.
Yeah.
Number 7, Vikings. I don't think they.
Yeah, I mean, look. Like, if you have a division winner, and they're going to win their first playoff game, to me, that can't be the 6th best team in the conference. Because that's saying, like, Seattle, I don't think Colin would say Seattle's going to win the division, right? He's not going to say Dallas is going to win the division. He's not going to say the Rams are going to win their division. So Detroit, which I agree, is probably, I would pick to win the North. And if they're going to win the playoff game, like, that's a really good season for Detroit. I just think if that's your guesstimate, I think you have to move them up a little bit. We're splitting hairs here. Like, Detroit at 4 or 6, not that big of a deal. But I would definitely have them higher.
They upgraded their defense enough. I think the
Minnesota will be all right. I think Minnesota will be average. I think that last year they should not have been a 13-win team or whatever they were. You all know what I think about Kirk Cousins. I think he can give you regular season success. He can keep you in games. He can keep you relevant. But primetime, playoffs, all that stuff, he's just not that guy, right? He is what he is. And that's okay. And I think this probably will be the end of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is real damn good. He could do what Cooper Kupp did when the Rams won the Super Bowl. But then, whereas I think Detroit is ascending, I think Minnesota has plateaued, and then they will kind of fall into their next era of whoever replaces Kirk Cousins. So they're going to take a step back. I would probably say I'd have them slated for like a 9-win team somewhere in there. 7 seems about right for them. I would have them behind the Saints, but
best move they made in the offseason was hiring Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. I still think they have average personnel.
They do.
They were 26 in defense last year. They made Daniel Jones look great twice.
Yeah.
I do think they've got a smart offensive coach. They add Jordan Addison. The offense will be fine. But
I like Jordan Addison a lot. I like him a lot, especially playing off of Justin Jefferson. I'm a big Addison fan.
I don't doubt their offense much. I know what it is. It's
Jordan Addison, Addison Ray, all the Addisons.
Top 10, top 12. I just don't think they did enough to the defense. Number 8.
They'll be here in 5. We ready?
What are we doing here, Colin? What are we doing here? We got ads. Is Fox Sports hurting? What's happening? You need me to Venmo you something? What's happening, Colin? We have paint commercials. Bear. Come on, Colin. We're better than
Giants added a very good.
All right, this is getting ridiculous with the Saints now. I mean, the Saints have to be in the top 10, and the Saints probably should be. We'll wait until the top 10 for me to reorder them. Here's the deal with the Giants. If you have the Giants 8, you are believing so much in Brian Daboll. If they are, and he'll probably say this. He may say that Daboll is the best coach in the NFC because you just can't, like, if you believe in Daniel Jones, if you believe in the offense, if you believe in everything, you have to believe that it's only working because of Daboll.
Good tight end Darren Waller. Still don't love their offensive line, don't love their receiving core. I think they're going to regress a little bit. Listen, they have enough to put in the top 10. I like Barkley, their defense, and their coach. but I still think they have an average quarterback. Their division, Philadelphia twice, feels better to me. I think this story is too much Brian
the hell does
Daboll
that mean?
and not enough Daniel.
What does that mean? Their division. What was that sentence? That was like a riddle.
This story is too much Brian Daboll
What?
and not enough.
Hold on.
They have enough to put in the top 10. I like Barkley, their defense, and their coach, but I still think they have an average quarterback. Their division, Philadelphia twice, feels better to me.
Their division, Philadelphia twice, feels better to me. Is that a haiku? Is this like, I feel like I'm talking to the Sphinx in Egypt. Like, what do we do with this riddle? Their division, Philadelphia twice, feels better to me. Well, let me know in the comments below if you've solved the riddle.
I think this story is too much Brian Daboll and not enough Daniel Jones. I think he's elevating a very average quarterback that's now overpaid. They're at 8. I'll put.
Wait, what? What? The story is Brian Daboll.
Much Brian Daboll and not enough Daniel Jones.
The story is too much Brian Daboll, but not enough Daniel Jones. And then he says that Daniel Jones is terrible.
I think he's elevating a very average quarterback that's now overpaid.
Yeah, that means the story should be all Brian Daboll, which it is. Brian Daboll is elevating Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is ass.
They're at 8. I'll put Green Bay at 9 because I like the structure.
Did he forget about the Saints? What's happening here? The Saints, I mean, we'll see 10. I don't like Green Bay at all. Green Bay was bad with Rodgers. There's no reason they will be better with Jordan Love. I know people like to hate on Rodgers, and they want to say that Rodgers was the reason they were bad. I'm here to tell you that is not the case. You don't lose a multi-time MVP quarterback who, a couple years ago, was the best player in the NFL. You don't lose that and then get better with Jordan Love. The receivers are bad. Their offense is now bad. LaFleur, we're not sure what he can do without Rodgers. I don't like Green Bay at all. There is no way I would have Green Bay in my top 10.
Structure, but I don't know what Jordan Love is. We have no idea. They just signed a contract today that clearly protects the Packers. They lost Aaron, Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan. Those are nice offensive pieces. I thought their first 4 draft picks were excellent.
They already had weak offensive pieces, and then they lost them. So I don't think the Packers are going to be good at all. I've heard a lot of people say that the Packers are going to be better than people we think, that the Rodgers loss won't be that big of a deal. I think those people just are jaded against Rodgers. Let's be honest. I mean, Rodgers, the Packers lost the second best quarterback in the NFC. Maybe even the best quarterback in the NFC. They lost that. You know, is Rodgers what he once was? I don't know. You know, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that they lost in a huge piece. Huge. And people are giving them way too much credit.
But Jordan Love has started one game. I have no idea what I get. And my surprise team in the NFC, you know there's going to be one. It's going to be Carolina. People are not paying attention.
This is crazy. This is nuts that Colin does not have the Saints in the top 10. The Saints, like Carolina, has a good defense, for sure. The rest of the roster, weak. And everything he said about Jordan Love, he could say about Bryce Young. Jordan Love has played infinitely more games in the NFL than Bryce Young. Assuming Bryce Young will even be average is a big assumption. Having Derek Carr, a Derek Carr-led team, getting Michael Thomas back with a good draft, having that team below Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, and Bryce Young is crazy. The Saints should be in the top 10. And I think in this specific top 10, I would have the Saints. I'd be okay with the Saints being 6. I'd be okay with the Saints being like Philly, San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas, Detroit, Saints. I think that makes sense. And you bump Carolina. And then you can have Minnesota, or you can have, if I was using this top 10 with the Saints in it, I would have Philly, San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas, Detroit, the Saints, Minnesota, New York, Green Bay, and then the Rams at 10.
Major upgraded coach. Frank Reich from Matt Rule. They added Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Von Bell. They spent some money. They got nice, productive NFL players.
Imagine emphasizing Von Bell. Like, imagine being like, guys, they got Von Bell.
I also think Jonathan Mingo was the best player arguably taken in the entire second round, the wide receiver. I think he's a great player. He'll be a pop player as a rookie, and Bryce Young was easily the most stabilizing quarterback. There's going to be a surprise. The Giants surprised people last year. There's going to be a surprise. It's an awful division. I think they now have the best coach in the division. I think Bryce Young starts and is...
They probably do have the best coach. I mean, Frank Reich is probably the best coach in the division. I'll give him that. But Matt Rule might have been the best coach in the division. The division is weak, no doubt. But Derek Carr and the Saints, like Michael Thomas, Derek Carr, Chris Olave, like all of that is better than Bryce Young, DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, whoever, Von Bell. Like, the Saints roster is way better than the Panthers roster. The Saints quarterback is way better than the Panthers quarterback. So I just don't see it. I mean, I don't see. This is one of those things where I don't think you could, like, I'm in New Orleans, right? Like, so I know the roster. I understand what's going on. Colin does not. Colin is not watching the team. Colin's not doing all that. So he's looking for a 10th team. He's like, Bryce Young's kind of exciting. We'll throw them in there. I think that's what that is. I mean, that's the only way that this can explain that. And I've had this pulled up, but if we go back to Caesars and you look at the NFC, if we can go to the conference winner. So Caesars, who I, respect their opinion, obviously, a sports book, a huge sports book. They know what they're doing. They would rank it San Francisco. They would rank it San Francisco 1. Now, this was posted a while ago. But San Francisco 1, Philadelphia 2, Dallas 3, Detroit 4, Saints 5, Minnesota 6, Giants 7, Seattle 8, Chicago 9, and Green Bay 10. Carolina is below Atlanta, or Carolina is the same as Atlanta. All right, look, I mean, like, Carolina is the 4th worst team in the NFC, according to Caesars. Now, obviously, these don't always work out like this. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but to have Carolina, like, that's a huge discrepancy in New Orleans versus Carolina. Like that's a huge shift in how Colin is perceiving New Orleans and how Caesars and Vegas perceives New Orleans. The rest of the list is pretty similar to what Colin was saying, right? Frisco, Dallas, and what I was saying, like that's kind of your top 10 teams. You could, in here, like Chicago's questionable, Green, you could kind of move some stuff around. But having New Orleans out of the list, I think is a clear mistake. I think it's a clear indicator that he's just not as tuned in to a team and just kind of left them out, just kind of forgot about them. So, I had the Saints 5, 6, somewhere in there. So I'm not. Colin's list is fine. Besides the Saints, I could live if he takes the Rams out or Carolina out and puts the Saints in. We're all good. We're okay. The Saints are for sure a top 10 team in the NFC. Let me know in the comments below what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Are the Saints a top 10 team in the NFC? And if you want to do so, put your top 10 list. Put your top 10 teams in the comments below, and I will give you my reaction to your top 10 in the comments. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next video.